Science and law go hand in hand. Since early 2000, specific scientific techniques have been used increasingly in criminal investigations. Hello viewers, we welcome you to join us on an informative episode on the legality and constitutional validity of scientific techniques such as narco analysis test, polygraph test, and brain mapping.
Now, thanks for the great introduction, Sandhya. So now we will look into the scientific methods of investigation, basically more into the criminal investigation aspects. So narco analysis as such, or as the lie detector test, or the polygraph test, or the brain mapping test, these are various phrases which seem to be used interchangeably. And all these scientific methods are based on neuroscience, which deals with the human brain and also the nervous system. However, each of these methods is different from each other. So now let's jump into the narco analysis, or the very interesting name, I would say, the truth serum test. So it is a psychotherapeutic method of investigation. In this method, what happens is the chemicals such as sodium pentothal is dissolved into the distilled water and it is injected into the person intravenously. And the drug actually, what it does, it depresses the nervous system of the person, sending the person to a kind of a trance or a hypnotic, kind of a state, which is kind of a less conscious state, I would say. And it gives them a kind of a sleepy kind of a state where your mind has been, all your inhibitions and mind lowering basically happens during this time.
Correct.
And when the person's guard is actually, when it is down, he or she is more likely to say the truth and not the lie. The dosage of this injection also depends upon the person's age, their gender, their medical condition. And this drug is commonly referred to as the truth serum, as I said previously. When injected, the person is asked a specific set of questions and answers are very spontaneous, and hence it is not manipulated. So this entire process, if you see, it is done in the presence of a very qualified team, which consists of an anesthesiologist, psychiatrist, you will have a forensic expert, an audio videographer, and a support staff as well. The recorded audio visual is then sent along with a detailed report to aid in further for investigations for the case. The narco analysis test is conducted generally in a government hospital or in a government forensic laboratory, and only after obtaining the court order. So the narco analysis test was used in some of the most sensational cases. The first being it was used in 2002 in the Godara riots case, up to the latest case of Shraddha Walkar, where the woman was being murdered, chopped into pieces, and disposed of in the forests outside Delhi.
We look at the next scientific technique of investigation, which is called the polygraph test, but often it is called the lie detector test. That's how all of us know it as. Now, this test, when we say lie detector test, it does not mean it detects whether a person is lying or not. It is a physiological sort of an examination. Now, to simply put it, what happens is the polygraph is a medical device. Okay, and all sensory wires and sensors are attached to the person's body, which is in turn attached to a signal converter and a computer which has an advanced software. Okay, now when questions are asked to the person and the person actually begins answering the questions, what is being monitored is the vital parameters like the blood pressure, the heartbeat, heart rate, pulse rate, skin gravitation. If there is any significant variations in all of these when the person is answering, then we deduce that he is not telling the truth. As I said, physiological examination. It is not to detect that a person is lying. It is to detect that a person is not telling the truth. And I mean, as again with all the scientific investigations, most of the cases which use narco analysis also lie detector tests are used. And one of the most sensational case, the polygraph or the lie detector, was used in the Arushi Talwar murder case in 2008.
Right. So next is the P300 test, or colloquially called as the brain mapping test. Now, in the brain mapping test as such, sensors are attached only to the scalp or the head of the person. And prior to this test, the person is asked about the event which he or she has taken place. And during the brain mapping test as such, please note there are no questions asked at all. So only sounds and images are shown to the person who's undergoing the test.
Right.
Now, the sensors which are attached to the scalp or the head monitor the electrical activity in the brain. The brain's response is altered when the person sees or relates to a particular sound or image. That's how they map the entire process and they get to know what is the truth. The brain mapping was used on many accused cases, especially in the Telgi stamp paper scam.
A look now at the legal and constitutional aspects of narco analysis and other tests. Article 20, Clause 3 of the Indian Constitution states, and I quote, "No person accused of offense shall be compelled to be a witness against himself." Essentially, it means that he cannot be self-incriminating. Now, tests such as narco analysis or lie detector or brain mapping will then be seen as in direct violation of this, right? As the person is actually talking about himself or herself. Now, there is a human rights angle to this as well, because narco analysis is done on persons when they are not in their normal state of mind, when their senses are dulled or the central nervous system is depressed. Now, this is regarded as gross violation of their right to privacy. Now, the right to privacy is not an inherent right, but it is derived from right to personal life and liberty under Article 21 of the Constitution. So human rights activists are up in arms saying that it's a gross violation of their right to privacy as well. When we come to the Indian Evidence Act, unfortunately, the Indian Evidence Act of 1872 does not contain any express provisions allowing the usage of such scientific and neuroscientific methods in criminal investigation.
Right. I think this is a very important point which we need to note, especially on the criminal investigation aspects.
Yes.
Now let's check on the admissibility of findings in the narco analysis test. The issue of admissibility of evidence through these scientific investigation methods has been a raging debate. And there were several case laws both for and against these kind of issues. So, however, in 2010, there was a landmark case, which is Selvi and others, which is the state of Karnataka. Here, the Supreme Court ruled that the techniques such as narco analysis, polygraph, or brain mapping, etc., cannot be admitted as evidence in the courts of law, as the person does not exercise conscious control over the responses during the administration of the test.
Okay.
However, any information that is subsequently discovered with the help of such test can be admitted as evidence under the Indian Evidence Act, and such information can be used in further investigations.
Okay. While we are discussing the Selvi and others versus state of Karnataka case, I would also like to bring to your notice that the Supreme Court had actually directed that strict adherence to guidelines which have been laid down by the National Human Rights Commission. Now, the National Human Rights Commission had suggested these guidelines only for the lie detector test, but the Supreme Court directed that they should be followed for all methods of scientific investigation, such as narco analysis as well as polygraph, etc. Okay. Now, we will look at the important directions given in the National Human Rights Guidelines. First, such tests can be administered only on the basis of consent of the accused. Now, the consent also has to be recorded before a judicial magistrate. So, consent is of vital importance here. Second, the accused or the person undergoing such tests has to be given access to a lawyer. Third, the physical, emotional, and legal implications of such tests have to be explained beforehand to the person who is going to undergo these tests. Okay. Now, the most crucial point here is at the hearing or at the start of the hearing, the person who is going to undergo these tests has to be clearly mentioned in no uncertain terms that the statements made by him shall not amount to a confessional statement. They will only be regarded as a statement being made to the police. Okay. And the actual recording of these tests, almost all of these tests are both audio and video recordings have to be made. Okay. And these tests shall be done, recording also, the tests as well as the recording shall be done by an independent government recognized agency. It could either be a government hospital or a forensic laboratory or any laboratory which is recognized by the government.
Right.
And such things should be done in the presence of a lawyer. The tests also should be done in the presence of a lawyer.
That's a very, very important point to be noted as well.
Yes.
So now to sum it up, I would like to say that the scientific methods such as the narco analysis, the polygraph, or the brain mapping are a heady mix of law, science, and ethics. And very few countries in the world use such scientific techniques in criminal investigations. And India probably uses this the most.
Right.
So while law and science are constantly evolving to keep pace with changing dynamics of the society, only law enforcement authorities and the courts can ensure this kind of a very delicate balance between the scientific criminal investigation aspects while ensuring and also upholding the right of privacy and the right to remain silent. We hope this topic would have been useful to our viewers. And until next time, see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.